Hello to everyone out there. I'm Poetic Heretic, and tonight, yes, we are going to be looking at the subject of the Mothman. We're going to do a study of the Mothman and its many mysteries. So, yes, this is a different kind of stream for me than what I normally do, but I thought I'd give this a try. Let me adjust the lighting here real quick. So this will be largely like my usual streams, except we'll be studying the Mothman. That will be the subject. I'll be looking stuff up as we go, reading it most of the time, and commenting on it a little bit. And I don't know if many people are going to watch this or not. If people come in and we end up having a discussion about it, like with the chat, that'll be cool too. For those of you who aren't familiar with my streams, you'll need to know that I usually need just a minute or two or three to get fully set up here and make sure everything is working right. So please just bear with me, and then we will get to our study of the Mothman. And it's sure to be both educational and creepy and also entertaining. I guess it's going to be multiple things that we all want. So give me just a moment. Okay, audio's good. And I should be able to stay here for a good 2 hours or so, most likely, as we explore this fascinating subject. And it should be a really good time, you know. Want to also say I'm not here trying to prove the existence of Mothman or anything like that. Let me say that real quick. We're just here to see what we can find out about it, basically. The way I do typically with my streams, only this time we are looking at the subject of the Mothman. Because I've looked into this subject before, and there's a lot of people that make some interesting arguments about why they think it isn't real, and so I'm sure we'll come across those. You know, I'm not trying to argue for or against its existence, nothing like that. Just here to do a study of it, and you know, we'll look at both arguments for it existing and for it not existing throughout the stream. So let's see here. The hell should I say? Live with a stream. Live with. Normally I know what to say in my streams, but this one's so different. I just don't know what to say. Live with an analysis of the Mothman legend. We'll just go with that. Fuck it. So indeed, I do intend this to be educational, but also entertaining, but also educational. And yes, I'm sure we will, from time to time at least, come across some rather unsettling and scary stories of alleged encounters with Mothman. So if you're looking for that, hang tight, as they say. Hang tight. And we will get to them sooner or later, I'm sure. And also, as is typically the case with my streams, this is intended to be like relaxed and everything. So I say at this point, I suggest to those viewers out there, just sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. If you're looking for something fast-paced, you might want to go elsewhere. Also, hello there, Brent FTP. What's up? Not a whole lot. I'm about to do a whole different kind of live stream tonight. So let's get right into it. So as is usually the case with my other kinds of live streams, we do internet searches and just start reading stuff and see what comes up. So I'm doing the very same thing here with Mothman. So let's just see what happens. All right, well, the first thing that came up is the Wikipedia entry on it. Let's just read that real quick and see what we think. Yes, I will occasionally offer commentary if I have anything to say about what we read. All right. So let the games begin. In West Virginia folklore, the Mothman is a creature reportedly seen in the Point Pleasant area from November 12, 1966 to December 15, 1967. The first newspaper report was published in the Point Pleasant Register dated November 16, 1966, titled, "Couple See Man-Sized Bird, Creature, Something." The national press soon picked up the reports and helped spread the story across the United States. It shows a statue of it right there, if you guys want to check that out. Statue of Mothman in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, USA. Other names, Winged Man, Country, United States, region, Point Pleasant, West Virginia. The Mothman was introduced to a wider audience by Gray Barker in 1970 and later popularized by John Keel in his 1975 book, The Mothman Prophecies, claiming that there were supernatural events related to the sightings and a connection to the collapse of the Silver Bridge. I'm sure we'll get all into that story as we go. The Mothman appears in popular culture. The 2002 film The Mothman Prophecies, starring Richard Gere, was based on Keel's book. I said that name kind of funny, Richard Gere. There we go. An annual festival in Point Pleasant is devoted to the Mothman legend. All right, history. On November 12, 1966, 5 men who were digging a grave at a cemetery near Clendenin, West Virginia, claimed to see a man-like figure fly low from the trees over their heads. This is often identified as the first known sighting of what became known as the Mothman. Shortly thereafter, on November 15, 1966, 2 young couples from Point Pleasant, Roger and Linda Scarberry and Steve and Mary Mollett, told police they saw a large gray creature whose eyes, quote-unquote, glowed red when the car's headlights picked it up. They described it as a, quote, large flying man with 10-foot wings, end quote, following their car while they were driving in an area outside of town known as the TNT area, the site of a former World War II munitions plant. During the next few days, other people reported similar sightings. 2 volunteer firemen who saw it said it was a, quote, large bird with red eyes, end quote. Mason County Sheriff George Johnson commented that he believed the sightings were due to an unusually large heron he termed a, I have no idea how to say this, Shitiapoke or Shitiapoke. I have no idea. Hang on. Maybe Google can tell me how to say it.
Poke.
It just gave me the poke. It didn't give me the rest of it. Well, whatever. He termed whatever it is. Contractor Newell Partridge told Johnson that when he aimed a flashlight at a creature in a nearby field, its eyes glowed, quote-unquote, like bicycle reflectors, and blamed buzzing noises from his television set and the disappearance of his German Shepherd dog on the creature. Wildlife biologist Dr. Robert L. Smith at West Virginia University told reporters that descriptions and sightings all fit the sandhill crane, a large American crane almost as high as a man, with a 7-foot wingspan featuring circles of reddish coloring around the eyes, and that the bird may have wandered out of its migration route. This particular crane was unrecognized at first because it was not native to this region. After the December 15th, 1967 collapse of the Silver Bridge and the death of 46 people, the incident gave rise to the legend and connected the Mothman sightings to the bridge collapse. The Mothman Prophecies 2002 is a major motion picture loosely based on the 1975 book of the same name by John Keel. According to Georgian newspaper Zvodnia Gruzia, no idea how to say that either, Russian ufologists claim that Mothman sightings in Moscow foreshadowed the 1999 Russian apartment bombings. In 2016, WCHS-TV published a photo purported to be of Mothman taken by an anonymous man while driving on Route 2. Science writer Sharon A. Hill proposed that the photo showed, quote, a bird, perhaps an owl, carrying a frog or snake away, end quote, and wrote that, quote, there is zero reason to suspect it is the Mothman as described in legend. There are too many far more reasonable explanations, end quote. All right, interesting stuff. Next, the analysis section. Analysis. Folklorist Jan Harold Brunvand notes that Mothman has been widely covered in the popular press, some claiming sightings connected with UFOs, and others claiming that a military storage site was Mothman's quote-unquote home. Brunvand notes that recountings of the 1966 to 67 Mothman reports usually state that at least 100 people saw Mothman, with many more quote-unquote afraid to report their sightings, but observed that written sources for such stories consisted of children's books or sensationalized or undocumented accounts that failed to quote identifiable persons. Brunvand found elements in common among many Mothman reports and much older folk tales, suggesting that something real may have triggered the scares and became woven with existing folklore. He also records anecdotal tales of Mothman supposedly attacking the roofs of parked cars inhabited by teenagers. Conversely, Joe Nickel says that a number of hoaxes followed the publicity generated by the original reports, such as a group of construction workers who tied flashlights to helium balloons. Nickel attributes the Mothman reports to pranks, misidentified planes, and sightings of a barred owl, an albino owl, suggesting that the Mothman's quote-unquote glowing eyes were actually red eye effect caused from the reflection of light from flashlights or other bright light sources. The area lies outside the snowy owl's usual range. According to University of Chicago psychologist David A. Gallo, 55 sightings of Mothman in Chicago during 2017 published on the website of self-described Fortean researcher Lon Strickler are quote-unquote a selective sample. Gallo explains that, quote, he's not sampling random people and asking if they saw the Mothman. He's just counting the number of people that voluntarily came forward to report a sighting, end quote. According to Gallo, people more likely to visit a paranormal-centric website like Strickler's might also be more inclined to believe in and therefore witness the existence of a quote-unquote Mothman. Gets kind of annoying reading all this stuff in quotes all the time. It's like, geez. It's like, how many times do I have to say quotes? Anyway. Some pseudoscience adherents, such as ufologists, paranormal authors, and cryptozoologists, claim that Mothman was an alien, a supernatural manifestation, or a previously unknown species of animal. In his 1975 book, The Mothman Prophecies, author John Keel claimed that the Point Pleasant residents experienced precognitions, including premonitions of the collapse of the Silver Bridge, unidentified flying object sightings, visits from inhuman or threatening men in black, and other phenomena. All right, interesting. So now let us look at festivals and statue. I sort of multitask here. Point Pleasant held its first annual Mothman Festival in 2002, and a 12-foot tall metallic statue of the creature, created by artist and sculptor Bob Roach, was unveiled in 2003. The Mothman Museum and Research Center opened in 2005 and is run by Jeff Wamsley. The festival is a weekend-long event held on the third weekend of every September. There's a variety of events that go on during the festival, such as guest speakers, vendor exhibits, a Mothman pancake eating contest. Wow. And hayride tours focusing on the notable areas of Point Pleasant. Fascinating. So a Mothman pancake eating contest. Damn, that sounds delicious. Can I get in on that contest? Not that I'd win, but sounds like a feast. All right, let's see. Some other stuff on here on the Wikipedia page for it, but it doesn't really look relevant to our purposes. So I guess that's it for Wikipedia. All right, let's see what else we have. Cryptids.fandom.com. Let's just see what this is. Let's just see what this is. And again, I'm not out to try to prove the existence or the non-existence of this alleged creature. I'm simply here to read what we can and investigate what we can digitally and see what comes of it. See what we can learn. All right, this should be good. Let's just see what we have here. Mothman. The state of West Virginia has had its fair share of strange and often inexplicable events, such as the visitation of the Flatwoods Monster and Indrid Cold. But perhaps the strangest yet is the arrival of the creature known as the Mothman, who changed the sleepy little town of Point Pleasant forever when it swooped in one cold autumn night in 1966. Today, Mothman is one of the most well-known cryptids in the world, made famous partly by John Keel's book, later adapted to film, The Mothman Prophecies. Mothman is also hunted in Mountain Monsters on Destination America. Sightings. The first recorded Mothman sighting took place on November 12, 1966, near Clendon in West Virginia. 5 men were in a cemetery preparing a grave for burial when they saw something they couldn't explain. Lifting off from the nearby trees was a brown-winged creature. The men held to the fact that what lifted off beyond the trees was no bird. It was a humanoid. The TNT area. The creature was sighted in many places across West Virginia and the surrounding states, but the largest number of sightings happened near the old West Virginia Ordnance Works, an area now known by locals as the TNT area. West Virginia Ordnance Works is an abandoned munitions to the north of Point Pleasant, West Virginia, that dates back to World War II. The facility, during its operation, manufactured ammunition and dynamite. The surrounding area is mostly forest, dotted with numerous grassy clearings and thick concrete domes called igloos that were used to store barrels of gunpowder. The area is also riddled with abandoned tunnels, most of which have collapsed, been sealed off, or become flooded with water. A wildlife sanctuary, McClintic Wildlife Management, now encompasses the area. In 1979, fishermen in the TNT area reported that chemicals had been left to seep into the ponds, causing it to be labeled an environmental disaster. By the year 1983, the TNT area was among the country's most polluted sites. Now I need to resize this shit. Damn, this might be hard to read. Oh well. It was here in the TNT area on the cold night of November 15th, 1966, 3 days after the first sighting took place, that 2 young couples would encounter this bizarre creature. Roger and Linda Scarberry were driving in Roger's black 57 Chevy Bel Air with Steve and Mary Mallett through the area around midnight when Linda noticed, unbelievably, 2 large, glowing red eyes in the darkness beside the old North Power Plant and screamed. They soon learned that these eyes belonged to something that looked frankly human, about 7 feet tall with wings folded against its back. Roger stalled in the road for a minute, inspecting the strange creature. The four realized immediately that their spectacle was no ordinary bird. The true horror began, however, when the creature spread its wings and pursued them down Highway 62 to the Point Pleasant city limits at speeds exceeding 100 miles per hour. The four arrived in town, startled and confused, and with no sign of the mysterious bird that had chased them. Roger parked his car at the edge of town, and they discussed their encounter, eventually deciding that what they saw was nothing more than an aberrant bird, and in an attempt to face their fears, they again drove towards the TNT area. It wasn't long before they saw the creature again, apparently waiting on them beside Route 62. The couples now realized that their stalker was no bird, but in the instant that the car's headlights landed on the creature, it lifted vertically into the air with tremendous speed and disappeared above the tree line. This time when they arrived into town, they went to the Mason County Courthouse and told their story to Sheriff George Johnson and Deputy Miller Halstead. 2 hours later, city police began investigating the area, only to return empty-handed. The next day, a press conference was held and the local press began printing on the story, causing others to come forward with previous and future sightings. This was the major event that started it all. In the November 16th issue of the Point Pleasant Register, the strange encounter would be brought to the public eye with the headline, "Couple Sees Man-Sized Bird, Creature, Something." The strange encounter in the TNT area was a harrowing experience for everyone involved, and on the morning of November 16th, 1966, Linda Scarberry was rushed to the hospital by her father after experiencing a nervous breakdown. On the phenomenon, Roger Scarberry stated, "I'm a hard guy to scare, but last night I was for getting out of there." End quote. Hello there, Lumen. Great to have you here. Thank you for joining me. Now I'm not all alone on this stream. You remember this? Oh, I love the story of the Mothman. Whether it's true or not, I have no idea, but I love it. Thank you for having your stream. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that so much. All right, continued sightings. This creature would be seen throughout the next 13 months in Point Pleasant, and it was estimated that there were over 100 sightings within this time, though these are unidentifiable reports and the actual number of reported sightings may be quite lower. Mothman witnesses were also harassed by the men in black who wanted them not to speak about the creature. The strange sightings all seem to culminate in the collapse of the Silver Bridge on December 15th, 1967. Many similar cryptids and creatures have been seen worldwide. The sightings are similar to Mothman in many ways, including the fact that most of them seem to be heralds of impending disasters. Some of the places Mothman or its fellows have visited included a mine in Freiburg, Germany, where a Mothman-like creature scared miners away shortly before a collapse. Another notable visit was to the nuclear plant at Chernobyl, where a creature haunted the facilities for a while before the famous nuclear meltdown. There were also 2 Mothman pictures taken in New York on 9/11 and multiple sightings before the Minnesota Bridge collapse. Some believe that the Mothman tries to warn people about disasters about to happen, such as the Freiburg and Chernobyl sightings listed above. However, since there only seems to be one Mothman instead of a bunch of his kind, and since he seems rather paranormal, these sightings are not of much interest to cryptozoologists who want to discover new kinds of creatures. Fascinating. Cincinnati bridge collapsed. I do believe it was in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, at least from what I've heard and what we've been reading. But I don't know. Has there been activity in Cincinnati as well? I don't know. Description. Mothman is described as a bipedal winged humanoid. Despite his name, which was given to him by newspapers, he is in no way moth-like. His coloration varies from black, gray, to even brown, although it's usually the darker shades, I think is what it's supposed to say. He is often reported to be about 7 feet tall, with a wingspan of about 10 to 15 feet or more, plus the ability to fly over 100 miles per hour. Sometimes he's described as not having a head with two huge red eyes set in the chest. These eyes are reported to be glowing, or at least reflective. The details of his face and his feet have never been adequately described. One witness who saw the face clearly could only say that the details were horrible and monstrous. She had terrible nightmares and nearly suffered a nervous breakdown. Also, they have an image here at least. Mountain monsters, Mothman reads the caption, and this is what the image looks like. Let's see. Oh, yeah, you watched the movie Lumen. As did I when I was younger. As did I. It was a good movie. I need to watch it again. Wonder if it's on Blu-ray yet. If not, they need to get it. They need to get it on Blu-ray. They need to get with it. Get that DTS HD master audio or DTSX Dolby Atmos. Highest possible bit rate, thousands of kilobytes per second. Or megabytes or whatever it is. Yeah, get on it. I know, right? Damn it, I think that screwed up the lighting again. Hang on, let me see if I can, maybe if I just move the camera a bit. Oh, I hate that. I hate when the lighting gets messed up. That drives me so crazy. Oh well. Eventually, I should be able to get some box lights in here, and then I'll be like very well lit up for these streams, and we won't have lighting problems anymore. Hopefully. All right. Anyone who gets a close look at the Mothman seems to suffer from extreme fear and psychological distress, sometimes lasting for months or years afterwards. In particular, people say that a sense of pure evil overcomes them when they see Mothman's eyes. He can fold his wings and walk with a weird shuffle that many witnesses compare to a penguin. When he flies, he unfolds his wings and shoots straight up with great speed, then levels out to go wherever he wants to go. He is rarely observed flapping his wings except for on takeoff. Witnesses often described his flight pattern as straight up, like a helicopter. He can fly much faster than any bird should be able to fly, as measured by those victims who suffered from what seems to be Mothman's favorite activity, chasing cars. He'll fly in front of them and even sometimes hit at the roof. It reminds me of Dahlia Gillespie saying, the demon is awakening, spreading those wings. Reminds me of that. So let's see. Mistaken photos. All right, here we go. There is yet to be any credible physical or photograph evidence to truly support the existence of Mothman, but there are a few photos that have been mistaken for Mothman, such as a photo of a bridge taken in 2003, which turned out to be just a piece of metal tilting and falling off. There have also been some photoshopped images, mostly done for art purposes and not to fool anyone. I'm funny. Yes, I was funny for once. I did it. All right. Explanations. Mothman sightings have been associated with at least two other cryptids, gigantic thunderbirds with gray bodies and red heads that were sighted in the same area at the same time by a few witnesses, and Owlman, which is an identical creature with wings and red eyes sighted in Cornwall, England in 1976. Sheriff George Johnson, who the original witnesses contacted, believed the Mothman may have been a large heron. Wildlife biologist Dr. Robert L. Smith at West Virginia University thought that Mothman was a sandhill crane, which the newspapers then reported on, but the witnesses completely disagreed. Wait, what do we have here? Hello, Ryan. Yes, more streams. I'm not dead. I'm still alive. Mothman. Yeah, I am just thrilled to talk about Mothman. I love it. I find it so fascinating. I just can't get enough of this stuff. All right, where were we? Oh shit, I lost my place. Hang on. Okay, I think I got it. Skeptic Joe Nickel posited owls as an explanation because of their eye shine and their silhouette resembling the headless Mothman. Most modern skeptics seem to agree with Joe Nickel, but the sightings might just be too extraordinary to attribute them to such animals. Two legends from Shawnee Indian lore mention creatures closely resembling Mothman deemed Mizignawa and Wapi, respectively. In the legend of Mizignawa, description of Mothman is indeed similar to Bigfoot by ceremonial dress used during the bread dance. The Wapi legend is also similar in that it's part of Shawnee lore, and that a family of Indians chose to become white hawks living in the forests near Point Pleasant. Reminds me, of course, a lot of Native Americans talk about this idea of skinwalkers. And, I've heard that as an explanation suggested many times for dogmen. The idea that the dogman may be a skinwalker, but could perhaps the Mothman also be a type of skinwalker? I don't know. Okay, where were we? Some believe the Mothman may be an angel, demon, or the product of a blood curse placed upon the town by Chief Cornstalk, who was murdered along with his son in the area. Similarly, the curse theory is one very attached to the collapse of the Silver Bridge. See if I can fix this lighting real quick. Sorry, I know I keep doing that, but we'll go with that for now. Mothman Festival. The Mothman Festival is an annual commemoration of the visit of the cryptid known as the Mothman. It started in 2002 and is held on the third weekend of every September in downtown Point Pleasant, West Virginia. It's located next to the Mothman Museum and the Mothman statue. The festival features a wide variety of vendors, guest speakers, live music, food, and events for all ages. People from all over the world come to experience the unique atmosphere and learn more about the Mothman. Yeah, like again, that Mothman pancake eating contest, I gotta get in on that. Let's see. Okay, I think we fixed the lighting problem, hopefully. All right, is there anything else on this site? What is all this stuff? Whatever, let's see. No, that's basically it for that site. Okay, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do something that I haven't done for the longest time ever. But since we're doing a paranormal theme stream, and this is the paranormal is what my Instagram that I made for this channel was largely about for a long time. I'm going to do an Instagram story on that real quick. I'm just going to film it live and upload it live. And hopefully we'll get some more people in here interested in the Mothman. I freaking love doing this stuff, you guys. If I had the energy, I would stream probably every day of my life or almost every day. I'm not kidding. I would do all kinds of stuff if I just had the freaking energy. Maybe I will eventually. All right, so let me, how do I do this? Hang on. Got to switch to my other Instagram. Oh, this Instagram still gets activity. Cool. All right, so let's see. How do I do this again? No, that's not it. One moment. How do I get the other camera? Okay, here we go. I felt bad about myself today. Basically slept through the whole day. Oh no. So body needed the rest after another long week of work. Yeah, you got to give yourself a rest, otherwise you will burn out. At least if you're anything like me. But no, I understand how that feels, Ryan. But I don't know. If I were in your position or whenever I'm in that position, I just try to accept things as they are, like accept what has happened and accept things right here, right now, and then like focus on what I can do. And also remind myself that before I know it, it'll be tomorrow and I'll have another chance to do whatever it is that I wanted to do. So I would suggest that as a possible solution. All right. Okay, let's see if this works. Let's see. Oh, that is totally not what I meant to do. I forget how to do this. I haven't done this in too long. Hang on. I think you hold it in. Let's see. Yeah, that's what you do. Okay. All right. Please bear with me, guys. I'm almost there. All right. The freaking flash isn't on. Let's see if this fixes that. Okay, yeah, it does. All right. Hello there. Actually, no. That's not what I want. The flash was not. They turned it back off. Okay. Hello there, everyone. I'm live on Poetic Heretic or on youtube.com/Poetic Heretic right now, and you should totally come watch. We're talking about the Mothman, and there it all is. So come join us. Link in my bio. Hello there, everyone. I'm live on Poetic Heretic or on youtube.com/Poetic Heretic right now, and you should totally come watch. We're talking about the Mothman, and there it all is. So come join us. Link in my bio. Okay. Hello there. That'll have to do. That was like basically a shit show, but you know, we don't have time to get things perfect right now. Also, you ended up in my story when I pointed my camera at the screen, so I hope that's all right with you. Hope you enjoy that. Let's see. Just make sure that posted. youtube.com/Poetic Heretic right now, and you should totally come watch. We're talking about the Mothman, and there it all is. So come join us. Link in my bio. Dear God, what have I done? All right, so okay. So now we're gonna get back to business. Wait, I'm gonna read you guys' comments. You're looking forward to me streaming again, Ryan? Thank you. Well, I'm happy to have you here and Lumen here. Like, I'm not quite sure how many people are going to be interested in these paranormal streams, but then again, that used to be all I ever talked about on this channel for a couple of years, so hopefully a lot of people are. But regardless, as you know, you guys know me, I'm just following my excitement, so I'll just go on doing whatever excites me, talking about whatever interests me most, regardless what happens, and for as long as I live. And right now, that has shifted to Mothman. So next up, it looks like is Snopes.com. Let's see what they have to say about Mothman. Oh, this is like a news story from a couple years ago. All right, well, let's just see. Mothman returns to Point Pleasant, West Virginia? Question mark. A man who wished to remain anonymous claimed to have snapped pictures of Mothman, the legendary West Virginian flying monster, by... Shit, where did it go? Oh no, what's happening? Okay, there we go. By Bethania Palma, published 25th November 2016. On 20th November 2016, an unidentified man allegedly captured images of what he believed to be the Mothman, a flying humanoid monster that gained fame for terrorizing the West Virginia town of Point Pleasant in the mid-1960s. The photographer gave the pictures to local news station WCHS, claiming he took them while driving on State Route 2. The station aired the pictures in a 21st November 2016 report. The images are grainy and show the silhouette of a two-legged winged creature flying around treetops. The Mothman has been a part of the local folklore of Point Pleasant, a small city on the western border of West Virginia, since it was first sighted in 1966. Sightings of the creature were associated with the collapse of the Silver Bridge over the Ohio River in 1967, which killed dozens of people, leaving some residents to consider Mothman sightings to be bad omens, although the bridge collapse occurred more than a year after the first sightings were reported, making the connection tenuous at best. While the Mothman legend has become a national curiosity and tourist attraction, early news reports on initial sightings suggest authorities believed it was an unusual-looking bird. Around the time it was first spotted, then Mason County Sheriff George Johnson said the creature was likely a, there's that weird word again I don't know how to say, shidepoke, a type of heron. Let's just assume it's pronounced shidepoke. But that level-headed assessment didn't do much to stop the story from spreading, with the help of credulous reporters writing stories about a mysterious large flying monster terrorizing the town. Quote, "Monster no joke for those who saw it," end quote, blared a headline in the Athens Messenger on 18th November 1966. It gained even more of a following with the publishing of a 1975 book, The Mothman Prophecies, and a 2002 movie starring Richard Gere by the same name. On 1st December 1966, authorities and a local biologist told the Associated Press they believed it to be a sandhill crane that had wandered out of its normal migration route. Because it wasn't native to the region, its appearance wasn't familiar to the local community, causing some fright. Weird thing is, though, so on the side of the idea of the Mothman existing, being a real phenomenon, like, if it was just a bird, or a particular kind of large bird, then how do you explain people reporting like their eyes getting all these disorders and having like nervous breakdowns and having to go to the hospital after seeing it? I mean, I know all of that's alleged as well, but if that part of it is true, then that would suggest that there's something more going on here, possibly something more going on than just some large bird that people are seeing. Although, considering that beliefs form reality, it could also be that if someone truly believes they've seen something paranormal and supernatural and they expect to have those kinds of adverse reactions, then the belief will theoretically, quite possibly create the fact. But, just throwing that stuff out there. Let's see. Still semi-awake, even though I managed to drive my sports car across the main highway and a secondary highway to get here. Oh, cool. I'm glad you're still semi-awake. Careful driving, though. Just hanging out in the upper room. Nice. Dogmen can exist. I think Mothman can exist, too. Fair point. Wish I could meet Mothman. Oh, boy. That sounds terrifying. And see bird shit all the time. Oh, jeez. Welcome, Jake. Yes, welcome, Jake. Welcome. All right, let's continue. On 1st December 1966, authorities... Did I already read this? I don't know. During the next 3 days, at least 8 persons reported various similar creatures. On November 18th, 2 volunteer firemen, Captain Paul Yoder and Benjamin Enochs, said they saw what definitely was a very large bird with large red eyes. Dr. Robert L. Smith, Associate Professor of Wildlife Biology at WVU, West Virginia University, said the descriptions all fitted the sandhill crane, the second largest American crane, which stands almost as high as a man and has a wingspan of more than 7 feet. He said the red eyes could be the large circles of bare reddish flesh around the crane's eyes. Smith said the bird apparently had wandered out of its normal migration route. Yeah, which is a fair point. I don't know, maybe people did just see a large bird or have just seen a very large bird when they saw Mothman. I don't know. I'm just investigating what we can find here. The most realistic explanation for the sightings of the so-called Mothman fell largely on deaf ears as the story went on to become folklore. In fact, it seems likely the recent photographs were produced with the intention of stirring up the Mothman myth on its 50th anniversary, as it was in late November 1966 when sightings were first reported. News reports about the recent sighting make it clear that the Mothman legend has ingrained itself in local culture and is not going anywhere. The creature has a statue in the middle of town, a festival and museum dedicated to him, and multiple local businesses that use him as a draw for customers. It is a little funny when you think about it, though. So it's like, residents of a town get absolutely terrified by this creature, and then they decide to make a festival out of it. Like, it's kind of funny when you think about it. It's like, oh, it scared us so much. I think we should make a festival about it. Oh, it traumatized us. Let's hold a celebration of it. Anyway, next up is the 13thfloor.tv. Let's see if they have anything for us. The real story of the Mothman Prophecies, they say. All right, let's see. My weird thoughts of cryptids and Mothman, especially Bigfoot, is interdimensional creatures that can exist in these areas of wilderness so untouched by humans that they can exist there, if that makes sense. Yes, that does make sense. Interdimensional creatures that can exist. Yes, like I've posed the theory before that since my strongest theory about the nature of reality and the existence of the entire universe is basically what is known as the many worlds theory, which means that for every possibility, there exists a reality with that unique possibility. So there's an infinite amount of universes with every possible possibility that could ever be. With that being the case, what it would seem like we're traveling through as we move through time, I know this might sound a bit hard to comprehend, and I apologize for that. I'll try to simplify it as much as I can. As we travel through time, we are theoretically, if this idea is correct, traveling through basically what is a series of parallel realities, kind of like a soup-like series of parallel realities that all of us humans travel through, and other entities as well. Now, my theory about dogmen and Mothman and stuff like this is that these are creatures that perhaps exist on the fringes of these parallel realities that we're always traveling through. So whenever someone, for whatever reason, sort of wanders into one of these like fringe parallel series of realities, because it's not even a parallel reality, technically it would be a series of parallel realities, because theoretically we're shifting realities billions of times per second. So whenever someone wanders into a series of parallel realities that is a vibrational match to Dogman or Mothman or any of these other paranormal creatures, then they can indeed have encounters with them, while in other realities, the realities that probably the majority of humanity inhabit, these creatures literally do not exist. They don't exist in those realities. And that's how you can have it seem like there's evidence so compelling for their existence and their non-existence at the same time. So I hope that made sense. Like, basically, I think it may very well be the case that in most like dimensions, these things don't exist, but in some dimensions they do exist. So hopefully that is an explanation that resonates. Let's see. Sounds like something my tiny hometown would do. I mean, we already known for one of the major cold cases in Canada. Oh, really? Like celebrate something terrifying? Interesting. Always thought they crossed over from somewhere. No one can really explain. That's why they're hard to find. But some people have had these similar encounters. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense because, like, again, I'm not trying to prove anything either way here. I think that what the skeptics often say, the argument that they used for the non-existence of Bigfoot, they'll try to say, like, well, Bigfoot, for example, they'll try to say Bigfoot is not real because if it was real, why have we not found the dead body of one? You know, why have we not ever found a dead Bigfoot? I think that's a fair argument. That does make a lot of sense. But I'm also aware that there's so many people who claim to have seen these things. And I think we can't just assume that we know all the variables and all the factors. Like, could they cross over from another dimension? I think it's entirely possible. So, yes, it does. It makes sense to me. Thank you, Lumen. Okay, good. Sometimes I get so, I don't know, enthusiastic about these ideas. I try to convey them all as quickly as I can, but I don't know. I don't always know if I'm making sense. Anyway, next up is indeed the 13th Floor.tv, the real story of the Mothman Prophecies, Part 1. Let's see what they have to say. All right, by David Ian McKendry, December 1st, 2015. In 2002, Richard Gere starred in a horror film about a West Virginia town that experienced a strange number of supernatural sightings leading up to the collapsing of a local bridge, the Mothman Prophecies. The film was based on disturbing real otherworldly occurrences that took place in Point Pleasant, West Virginia from 1966 to 67. Still to this day, the numerous strange events and sightings of giant moth-like visitors go unexplained. Here is the actual story that influenced the film and legend. On December 15th, 1967, the Silver Bridge, a suspension bridge connecting Point Pleasant, West Virginia, and Gallipolis, don't know how to say that, Ohio, collapsed, killing 46 people. Spanning the Ohio River, this I-bar chain bridge, built in 1928, met its fate during rush hour as people were returning home from work and families were going into town to begin their Christmas shopping. What caused this well-traveled bridge to collapse wasn't a mystery. A defect in one of the I-bar links caused a crack to form, which led to the catastrophe. The real mystery was the appearance of a strange visitor sighted several times by the citizens of Point Pleasant during the months leading up to the tragedy. This strange visitor was known as the Mothman. The Mothman first made it into the news on November 16, 1966, when the Point Pleasant Register reported, quote, "Couples see man-sized bird, creature, something." Point Pleasant residents Steve and Mary Millette, along with Roger and Linda Scarberry, were driving near the McClinty Wildlife Reserve on West Virginia Route 62 when they crested a hill and came face to face with a creature they claimed was 7 feet tall with large red eyes and a 10-foot wingspan. Swerving around the creature, they attempted to drive away. However, seconds later, they found the Mothman was back in front of their car. More frightened than ever, the two married couples headed back for town, traveling at almost 100 miles per hour. All the while, the creature cruised along the ground right behind them and, in some instances, swiftly soaring 50 feet above their car. As the car turned on a farm road, the creature once again managed to block their path. This time it laid in the road like a lump resembling a dead dog, as though it were waiting for someone to step out of the car and investigate. Not wanting to fall for what may have been a trap, they backed up and made their way back to town. Later that night, they returned to the farm road, this time with the deputy sheriff. The lump in the road was gone, but they did find, quote, a strange pile of dust, end quote, in its place. Yet, this wasn't the first time someone had actually seen this strange being. On November 12, 1966, grave diggers working in Clendenin, West Virginia, claimed to have seen the half-man, half-moth creature flying through the trees just above their heads. In the coming months, reports of Mothman sightings flooded local papers. Many citizens reported hearing noises outside. When they went to investigate, they found the creature's red eyes glowing in their flashlights. Some residents even blamed the creature for their missing pets. One farmer told the Point Pleasant Register that his German Shepherd went missing just after some giant beast with red eyes was seen on his property. Wildlife experts believed a sandhill crane to be the most likely culprit. However, it doesn't explain how the bird acquired a taste for dog meat, or why the sightings of the mysterious Mothman stopped right after the bridge collapse. This led many people to believe that the Mothman may have been there to warn the citizens of Point Pleasant. John Keel, who wrote the book The Mothman Prophecies in 1975, claims residents were experiencing precognitions and premonitions that the Silver Bridge was going to collapse. Some cryptozoology theorists even claim that the Mothman has been sighted before many more large-scale tragedies around the globe, even 9/11. To this day, the Mothman remains an unsolved mystery, but a mystery the citizens of Point Pleasant still celebrate once a year, in September, during the Mothman Festival. They've even erected a statue in the middle of town right outside the Mothman Museum, making Point Pleasant a great stop on your next road trip. And looks like that's it. They said there was a part 2, but I don't see where that is. So another interesting thing to consider with this, though, and this goes for all paranormal phenomena, is that since all reality is psychological, that means that Mothman, Dogman, Bigfoot, you name it, these things, whether real or not real, are reflections of aspects of our own psyche. And so when we look into these sort of deep, dark, mysterious areas, we're actually looking into deep, dark, mysterious areas of ourselves, whether we realize it or not. That's my theory. More like a thesis, perhaps. Let's see. I'm reading you guys' comments. Use that bridge every day because it's a free bridge. Wait, what happened to the bridge? I'm not sure. I think I'm lost here. Anyone else notice how lots of crazy things say occurred in the 70s? Serial killers everywhere, exorcisms, Mothman, etc. Yeah, isn't that weird? Why was it the 70s? Wonder if it was maybe the astrology of the time. We should look at that sometime. Like what was going on in the 70s. Actually, we'll look at that in a moment. Just real quick. Even after hearing all these stories, I like to believe Mothman isn't an entity trying to cause harm, but rather trying to warn people like some people think. Yeah, I wonder. I don't know. But maybe it is. Maybe it is just an entity trying to warn people. Let's see. I think it's trying to warn people as well. Yeah, it could be. I mean, and again, we have to remember the psychological component of this as well as all phenomena if we're going to see it correctly. So if there's a belief generated, especially by a large number of people, that Mothman appears to warn you about something, then you'll tend to experience it as that, whether that's truly its quote-unquote objective purpose or not. All right, so here's what we're going to do just real quick, just for like a minute or two. I'm going to look at the astrological conditions of the 70s and see if I can identify any possible explanations for why the 70s were so rampant with this paranormal phenomena. So let's just see here. So right now, of course, it's May 11th, 9:10 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to go to May 11th, 1975, 9:10 p.m. Eastern Time. Let's just see. Probably want to mainly look at Neptune and also Pluto. Well, there was what appeared to be, let's see here. Yes, I think so. An ongoing Neptune-Pluto sextile in the 70s, although I think that was actually going on for longer than that, going back into the 60s now. When the hell did it begin? I don't know. There was, I guess, somewhat of a Neptune-Pluto sextile going on, not just in the 70s, but back in the 60s. I'm not even sure when it began. But of course, Neptune is the planet of the supernatural and the mysterious and the dreamlike and the non-physical realms, the otherworldly things. Then Pluto is that which is deep and dark and scary, powerful, fearful, and a sextile is basically harmony between those energies, a supportive sextile. And so when we had two powerhouse planets like that, and believe me, in astrology, I've studied it for nearly 3 years hardcore, Neptune and Pluto being the two slowest moving planets that we have in astrology, those are two of the most powerful planets of all in astrology. When we have the two of them like locking together energetically like that, yeah, that's going to make for some pretty wild stuff. And indeed, in the realm of the paranormal. So that does make sense. What if I just click back a bit more, if I can maybe find when it began? Okay, here we go. Okay, so I can't give you guys an exact year, but it looks like roughly 1950, 1951, somewhere in there is where it began. And because they both move so slowly, and Neptune only moves ever so slightly faster than Pluto, generally speaking, at least I think, it took literally like a decade or two for them to finally start moving apart like that. Unless they actually moved closer, and I'm just not realizing that. Hang on. No, they started moving. Wait. This is very strange. One moment. Or did they start moving closer together? I don't know. I can't figure this out right now. But regardless, it was virtually exact in 1950, 51. All right, so let's just continue to the next site. allthat'sinteresting.com/Mothman. The story of the Mothman. Hang on. The story of the Mothman, the legendary creature that terrorized a West Virginia town in the 1960s. Shouldn't both a mouse and rat be the same species, yet just different breeds? Just like we categorize cats and dogs. Yeah, it seems like it. Yeah, that's weird. Wonder if there's some odd technical reason for that. All right, so anyway, this article is by Chrissy Howard, published May 17th, 2017, updated February 15th, 2019. Separating the fact from fiction behind the Mothman, perhaps the creepiest folk legend in American history. On November 12, 1966, in Clendenin, West Virginia, 5 gravediggers working in a cemetery noticed something that they described as a, quote, brown human being that flew over their heads, gliding from tree to tree. This was the first reported sighting of what would come to be known as the Mothman, an elusive creature that, although now widely celebrated by the town it once terrorized, remains as mysterious as it was on the night that a few frightened witnesses first laid eyes on it. Just 3 days after that initial report, in nearby Point Pleasant, West Virginia, two couples noticed a white-winged creature about 6 or 7 feet tall standing in front of the car they were all seated in. Eyewitnesses Roger Scarberry and Steve Millette told the local paper, the Point Pleasant Register, that the beast had bright red eyes about 6 inches apart, a wingspan of 10 feet, and that it seemed to want to avoid the bright headlights of the car, likening it to a moth. According to the witnesses, the Mothman was able to fly at speeds greater than 100 miles per hour, although he did make for a clumsy runner, all of which was witnessed after the creature allegedly chased their moving vehicle to the outskirts of town. Knowing how absurd this must have sounded to a local paper in a small Appalachian community in the 1960s, Scarberry insisted that the apparition couldn't have been a figment of his imagination, assuring the paper that, quote, "If I had seen it while by myself, I wouldn't have said anything, but there were 4 of us who saw it." Yeah, see, that's another thing. If this story is true, it's like, if there were literally 4 people who saw this creature, you would think at least 1 or 2 of them, if it was just a large bird, would have been able to sort of rationalize that or like notice that. But who knows? More and more sightings were reported in the Point Pleasant area over the next year. The Gettysburg Times reported 8 additional sightings in the short span of 3 days following the first claims, including 2 volunteer firefighters who supposedly saw what they described as, quote, "a very large bird with large red eyes," end quote. One sighting, reported by Salem, West Virginia resident Newell Partridge, told of strange patterns that appeared on his television screen one evening, followed by a strange sound just outside of his home. Shining a flashlight toward the direction of the noise, Partridge supposedly witnessed 2 red eyes resembling bicycle reflectors looking back at him. This anecdote remains a popular one in the Mothman mythos, especially because it resulted in the disappearance of Partridge's dog, supposedly to the grips of the fearsome beast. Just going to multitask here for one moment. Okay. However, Dr. Robert L. Smith, associate professor of wildlife biology at West Virginia University, dismissed the notion that a flying monster was staking out the town, instead attributing the sightings to a sandhill crane, which stands almost as tall as the average adult man and bears reddish flesh around its eyes. Additional Point Pleasant legend states that the creation of the Mothman was nothing more than the work of one very committed prankster who went so far as to hide in the abandoned World War II munitions plant that the creature was spotted near. Nevertheless, national press ran with the story, spreading it across the country and causing somewhat of a sensation. They show a picture here, and it's like some kind of plaque. I don't know if this is in Point Pleasant or what, but like one of those historical things that you'll see outside at various, I don't know, tourist sites or whatever. And what it says is, Silver Bridge collapse, constructed in 1928, connected Point Pleasant and Canaga, Ohio. Name credited to aluminum-colored paint used. First I-bar suspension bridge of its type in the U.S. Rush hour collapse on 15th December 1967 resulted in 31 vehicles falling into river, killing 46 and injuring 9. Failed I-bar joint and weld identified as cause resulted in congressional passage of National Bridge Inspection Standards in 1968. Oh, boy. I'd love to go to Point Pleasant one day. Me too. Me too. Let's all go to Point Pleasant together and like do a live stream. Let's see. Should go white water rafting while you're in the area. It is so much fun. Well, that does sound fun. Sounds like scary as hell, though. At least for someone like me, anyway. Someone like me who has to deal with anxiety and all that. I'd be like, I can't control this raft. It's really getting to me right now. I feel like I'm gonna die. I can just imagine it. Maybe it'd be good for me though. It'd be like more exposure therapy, like the exposure therapy or successive desensitization walks I've been going on. Let's see. If all goes to plan, I'll be in Texas in 2020. Oh, cool. Texas, that's intense. I don't know if I could handle Texas. Like I've heard it's really, really hot, and then I don't know. I'm afraid of bugs. I have various fears. That's the point. Adrenaline. I don't know. I'm already taking medication for my heart. I don't know if I can handle that much adrenaline. Maybe just take an extra pill that day. No, anyway. In 1975, author John Keel conflated supernatural. Oh, wow, this article. Conflated. You can tell this article is, you can tell where they're coming from. Author John Keel conflated supernatural events and other disasters with the Mothman sightings, as well as reported UFO activity to create his book, The Mothman Prophecies, which inspired the 2002 movie of the same name. Now there's some crap popping up on my screen. How do I get rid of it? Okay. Keel even went so far as to connect the creature to the collapse of the Silver Bridge on December 15, 1967, which resulted in the deaths of 46 people, despite the official reason for the structure's demise, quote-unquote, failed welding. The idea that visitations from the Mothman predicted impending doom led some believers to make ties to the Chernobyl disaster of 1986, the Mexican swine flu outbreak of 2009, and the 2011 nuclear disaster in Fukushima, Japan, among others. The Mothman also bears a striking resemblance to several demon archetypes found among those who have experienced sleep paralysis, perhaps suggesting that the visions are nothing more than the embodiment of humanity's greatest fears, pulled from the depths of the collective unconscious. The Mothman can still be seen in Point Pleasant, West Virginia today, in the form of a historical museum open 7 days a week, and also as a 12-foot tall, chrome-polished statue, complete with massive steel wings and ruby red eyes. A festival commemorating the Mothman's visits has taken place every year for the past 16, with the next one scheduled to take place on September 16th and 17th, 2017. All right, that's it for that article. This is interesting stuff. Maybe we should look up like Mothman stories next, like see if we can find, like alleged encounters with it. Love to stop by and see Mr. Poetic, honestly. Aw, thank you, Ryan. So for real right now, though, you guys, just want to say again, thank you so much for being here. Like, it means a lot to me. Like, yes, I would be doing this whether anyone watched or not, but like, it does mean a lot to me to have people here, like in a chat in the stream that I am doing for, as we discuss a topic that I'm really interested in and excited about. So just thanks again. Also, I'll be right back. I need a tissue. Okay, I've returned. So I'm just gonna scroll up and like see what you guys have been talking about for a little bit. Yeah, I think we'll look up some stories next. See what we can find. Let's see. I stopped being hysterical a long time ago. It just makes people think you're crazy. Understandable. A lot of people probably think I'm a little crazy. I think Mars is most powerful, but that's just the 5 Aries in my birth chart speaking, I guess. 5 Aries. You mean like 5 things in Aries? That's funny. I know a Jake who has 5 things in Aries. Let's see. We have a chubby little mouse that appears sometimes in the lunchroom at my work. Oh, wow. That would be entertaining. It's the year of the pig. Is it really? Is it really the year of the pig? What does that actually mean, though? I know that I'm pretty sure it's like a Chinese thing, right? I'm just scrolling through the comments still, and we'll get back to Mothman. Yeah, Jake, I knew it was you. Or I had a sneaking suspicion once I saw the 5 Aries thing. Oh, well, thank you so much for watching my stream. It means a lot to me. And we should catch up sometime. Thank you for having us. Thanks for streaming and welcoming us into your domain. Oh, you guys are so nice. Well, you're very welcome. Like, it's literally my pleasure. Like, it makes me very happy to do this stuff. And also, by the way, so my interests have been shifting again as of late, and I'm finding the paranormal to be really interesting again. And I've also been listening to a lot of Ghostly Talk, which is a show that existed for a while from, I think, 2002 to 2009. Then they went on hiatus, and then it came back a couple years ago. And I highly recommend it. Like, it's basically a podcast. I don't know, just look it up wherever you go to for podcasts, or go to ghostlytalk.com. Like, I love listening to that show lately. I cannot get enough of it. And so I'm thinking probably what will happen is we'll start talking about the paranormal more often again on this channel. Like, no promises, but I think that's what we're going to do with these various streams. I'll still talk about tarot and astrology as well, obviously. But yeah, the paranormal is capturing my interest again a lot. So there you go. One of the most wholesome spots on YouTube. It's very occult driven. Subject most seen as very unwholesome. Wait, you mean like my channel or Mothman stuff? Paranormal? I'm so confused. All right, so next up, right, we're gonna look at Mothman stories. Let's see if we can find that. "11 convincing stories of people who saw the Mothman, ranker.com. Oh yeah, I also had coffee earlier today, you guys. If you can't tell, I'm a little hyped up tonight. All right, let's just see what this site has to say. Convincing stories of people who saw the Mothman in real life by Lyra Radford. Often described as a humanoid figure, around 7 feet tall with a massive wingspan and hypnotic glowing red eyes, the creature of legend known as the Mothman seems to be connected to tragic events. Across the world, witnesses claim to have seen a creature of this description, with sightings becoming more frequent in the days leading up to horrific events. 2 bridge collapses, the Chernobyl disaster, and even the 9/11 terrorist attacks were all allegedly preceded by Mothman sightings. What is the Mothman? Could it be a cryptid like Bigfoot or something otherworldly, perhaps extraterrestrial in origin? Reports of strange lights in the sky, and unnerving humming sound, and electrical interference have all been tied to Mothman sightings. Many have asked about this creature's possible motives. Could it have been causing these disasters, or should its presence be considered a warning of what's to come? Like any good harbinger of doom, the Mothman possesses a blood-curdling shriek that's been known to make those who hear it experience nausea and vertigo. The following are stories of real people who claim to have seen Mothman and what disasters they experienced or narrowly averted. Two young couples were chased down Route 62 by the Mothman. On November 15th, 1966, two couples, Roger and Linda Scarberry and Steve and Mary Millette, were driving past a TNT plant when they saw a humanoid figure with glowing red eyes. Linda described what they saw on the side of the road as a bird-like humanoid creature with a large wingspan and fiery red eyes. She said it was about 7 feet tall, its wings folded against its back. Quote, "You could see muscles in its legs," end quote, she recalled. The creature followed them as they drove back towards Point Pleasant on Route 62. Then it veered. What the fuck just happened to my screen? I apologize. Hang on. Geez, what just happened? Hang on. Okay, I think this is where we were. Linda described what they saw on the side of the road as a bird-like humanoid creature with a large wingspan and fiery red eyes. She said it was about 7 feet tall, its wings folded against its back. Quote, "You could see muscles in its legs," end quote, she recalled. Wait, what are you guys saying? It was nice to listen. Have a good night. I have to head to bed now, sadly. Thanks for the great stream. All right. Thanks. Yeah, thanks again, Jake. Thanks so much. We got to catch up sometime. Yeah, so thanks for being here. Glad you enjoyed. Need to set up a mailbox at my new place so I can order things online again. Ah, yes. Sounds like a good thing to do. I love ordering things online. I would do it all the time if I had the money. All right, let's see. The creature followed them as they drove back towards Point Pleasant on Route 62. Then it veered off into the fields and disappeared. The group went straight to the Mason County Police Department to share the terrifying account, which soon made its way into local papers. "I wish we had never seen it. I wish someone else had seen it," Linda Scarberry said later. And I guess that's basically it for that story. Interesting. And here I am multitasking again. The Mothman haunted Point Pleasant prior to the Silver Bridge collapse. The first of a series of strange sightings actually took place about 85 miles away from Point Pleasant in Clendenin, West Virginia. 5 gravediggers heard a rustling in the trees overhead and looked up to find what they claimed was a flying man directly above them. Over the next few days, more reports started trickling in. 2 volunteer firemen described a, quote, "large bird with red eyes," end quote. At least 100 reports from people of all ages circulated throughout Point Pleasant between November of 1966 and December of 1967, describing a monster that was able to ascend straight up into the air, quote unquote, like a helicopter. All of the witnesses described the same birdman with glowing hypnotic red eyes and the wings of a bat. Mary Heyer, a reporter at the time of the Mothman sightings, received over 500 phone calls, not only about this mysterious creature, but also strange lights in the sky, electrical interference, mysterious humming sounds, and UFO sightings. Then, on December 15th, 1967, a year after the Mothman sightings began, tragedy struck. During rush hour traffic, the Silver Bridge collapsed, 46 people died, and the Mothman disappeared. I wish someone else had seen it. That's a powerful statement. That's true. That's true. It's like wanting someone else to see it. So you're not alone in the sighting. So you know, like, maybe so you know you're not crazy. Or however it was that she felt. So I just had another idea, perhaps after this article. I do have the book, The Mothman Prophecies, on my computer. And while I haven't read all of it, I have read well, I've read like the first few chapters or so, but the first like not chapter, but like part of the first chapter or something is particularly interesting, particularly good, the way that the subject is introduced. So I think we might just go ahead and read that after this article and see what people think of that. So let's see. The Mothman saved the lives of miners in Freiburg, Germany. On September 10th, 1978, a group of miners in Freiburg, Germany came face to face with a seemingly headless creature with glowing red eyes on its chest, blocking the mine's entrance. At first, they thought it was a man in a trench coat, but they quickly realized it was not a coat, but unfurled large black wings. The men remained in the mine entrance, stunned and staring at the creature, until it let out a blood-curdling screech that sent the miners scrambling out. About an hour later, the men felt a seismic rumble and witnessed a plume of dust shoot from the mine as it collapsed. If the men had gone to their stations in the mine as usual, the majority of them would have died. It appeared as though what they dubbed the Freiburg Shrieker saved their lives. The Mothman tried to warn people of the Fukushima disaster. Your phone's gonna die? Oh no. Is there a way you can charge it? Sometimes I'm surprised my phone even doesn't die at all. By now, it's so old, especially the battery. So let's see. The Mothman tried to warn people of the Fukushima disaster. Marcus Pulls, an American visiting Japan, was out with a friend near the Fukushima plant when suddenly they heard a loud whooshing sound and a terrible screeching. As they looked back towards the plant, they saw a figure Pulls described as, quote, large and black. From the distance I was at, it looked to be sitting on top of one of the squared-shaped buildings. It sat there for about 5 seconds, then it unfurled a large set of what I could only describe as large black wings, end quote. The creature took flight, circling the plant a few times before coming closer to them. Quote, that's when I noticed the two large red eyes. They seemed to glow from within and with a blood-red hue. They were unblinking in the 3 to 4 seconds we saw them. We knew they were looking straight at us. We knew this creature knew we could see it, and it made no attempt to disguise itself, end quote. Puels describes an immense feeling of dread that washed over him, and the creature vanished as quickly as it had appeared. It wasn't until Puels was back home in America, hearing the news on CNN about the devastation of the Japanese earthquake and the explosions at the very same nuclear power plant where he had witnessed the creature, that he realized he may have seen the infamous harbinger of disaster known as the Mothman. The Mothman was hanging around the Twin Towers the week of the 9/11 attacks. During the days leading up to the terrorist attacks on September 11th, 2001, several people reported sightings of a black winged creature flying near the Twin Towers. During the attack, as the second plane hit, eyewitnesses reported a creature flying parallel to the plane. Then in the days that followed, those reporting the creature were allegedly approached by quote-unquote men in black and warned to stop talking about what they saw. I wish these freaking pop-ups would just go, like, crawl into a ravine and die. Okay, there, I got rid of them. The Mothman is connected to the Chernobyl disaster. The Mothman is believed to have been around for the worst nuclear accident in history. Throughout 1985, many scientists and other workers at the nuclear power plant in Chernobyl, Ukraine, claimed to see a huge black bird-like creature with the body of a man flying around the plant. Those who saw the red-eyed beast also reported a series of strange, harassing phone calls and a string of nightmares leading up to the disastrous explosion in April 1986. On April 26, 1986, the day of the accident, several people saw the huge black bird, that's in quotes, huge black bird, actually flying around the smoke after the explosion. Even those in the nearby town of Pripyat, I don't know how to say that, claim to have seen the strange creature that became known as the, quote, Black Bird of Chernobyl in the days leading up to the disaster. Pripyat was also affected and later evacuated because of the harmful radiation. Yeah, they're going to have to come to me at this point in regards to the feeling. I've almost been locked up in a mental hospital for my warnings. That came true, by the way. Holy shit. Wow. So precognition. Well, you're not alone in that, you know. I've even met people who claim to have had such precognitive abilities. Like, I've met them in person. Like, I'm pretty damn sure that stuff is real. Huh, interesting. This is not cool. Yeah. It sucks. Yeah, it sucks that like people will think that you're crazy or need to be locked up just because you have abilities that are not within their realm of typical experience. Like that's an injustice if I ever saw one. Mothman appeared at the site of the I-35W bridge collapse. The Mothman was spotted at yet another bridge collapse in 2007. Eerily enough, the I-35W bridge in Minneapolis, Minnesota, was opened for traffic in 1967, the same year the Silver Bridge collapsed. Then on August 1st, 2007, after a month of Mothman sightings, the I-35W bridge collapsed during rush hour, taking the lives of 13 people with it and injuring 145 more. Reports of the Mothman began trickling in on June 27, 2007, preceding the collapse by a mere month. Many claim to see the humanoid creature flapping its massive wings in the surrounding area and at the bridge itself. An Illinois woman witnessed the creepy cryptid while driving just outside of Stewartville, Minnesota on June 27, 2007, called paranormal radio show host George Norrie on Coast to Coast AM, and described the creature as having, quote, a huge wing about the width of a Ford, end quote. I wish I could afford to listen to Coast AM, but like, I don't know, it seems hard to access that show fully. Like, I've seen clips of it on YouTube, but I don't know. There's never like the full show, and it's always difficult. That's another reason, like, not any offense to Coast AM, great show and all, but it's another reason I really like Ghostly Talk, because honestly, to me personally, listening to that show, it's like a free Coast to Coast AM, you know, because you don't have to pay anything for Ghostly Talk. They don't even do advertisements on it. Nothing, like literally nothing. They just do it because they want to do it. It's like getting a show of the quality, at least in my opinion, of Coast to Coast AM for free. Like, I cannot say enough about that show recently. Like, Ghostly Talk, I would probably just sit here all day and all night listening to it all day, every day if I could. But anyway. A West Virginia man claims his dog was taken by the Mothman. On November 13th, 1966, in Salem, West Virginia, Merle Partridge heard a loud noise outside of his home, 90 miles from Point Pleasant. During an interview in Eyes of the Mothman, he recalled his television making a high-pitched whining sound and his dog barking wildly. After going outside to investigate, Partridge was startled by two glowing red eyes that belonged to no animal he'd ever seen before. He also described eerie flashing red lights that seemed to be dancing around. His hunting dog took off after the creature, and that was the last he ever saw of either. He went out to search for his dog with friends the next day, but the dog was never seen again. The combination of hundreds of Mothman sightings in the area that year, claims of red lights dancing over the TNT plant, and electrical interference during these sightings has led to speculation that the Mothman might have extraterrestrial origins. An eyewitness in Wisconsin says the Mothman attacked his car. Wouldn't that be so fucking crazy? You're just like driving along at night It's like a cold, dark, foggy, mysterious night. You're all alone in a wooded area, and all of a sudden, you see this great, big, winged thing swoop down in front of your car, spreading those wings. And then you just see those two red eyes staring at you hypnotically, mesmerizingly, entrancing you. And you just sit there paralyzed with fear, paralyzed, terrified. Something hit your windshield, it shatters, and all the glass blowers your face and your eyes as you're crossing the bridge. Yeah, this crazy. Holy shit! Yeah, that would really be terrifying. See, this is another reason why I need to watch that movie. Need to watch that freaking Mothman Prophecies again. Wait, mine was a cardboard box. I've been broken down and open, but it's pooped in like a bird. Oh, geez. Yeah, that would be. I don't know. I haven't had my own car for a while. Well, at least a working car. So it's a little bit hard for me to fully imagine that as much these days, but I can still imagine it to some extent. All right. An eyewitness in Wisconsin says the Mothman attacked his car. On September of 2006 in La Crosse, Wisconsin, Awahali, a Cherokee man, and his son were driving down an isolated stretch of road at night when the Mothman attacked them. In an interview on Monster Quest, he shared his encounter. Awahali told how the creature flew alongside and then directly in front of their windshield, close enough to touch. They got a really good look at it, describing it as bat-like and fleshy, with sparse hair and red eyes the size of road reflectors. He described the monster's high-pitched screech that gave them vertigo and made them sick to their stomachs. The man's son pulled over and threw up on the side of the road. After returning to the location a few days later, in the daytime, all they found left behind was a deer carcass they later blamed on a poacher. Weird. Mothman sightings are correlated with the swine flu outbreak in Mexico. Some believe the large, hairy, red-eyed creature the people of La Junta, Mexico began to see stalking the area in 2009 was the legendary Mothman. The sightings occurred around the time leading up to the 2009 swine flu outbreak in Mexico. Two witnesses, Angela Mendez and Viviana Ledesma, experienced pure terror as they heard the creature's screeches emanating out from an apple orchard near Miñaca Cemetery. A student who requested to remain anonymous reported the Mothman chasing him for 15 minutes on the night of March 6, 2009. Despite the best efforts of local authorities to hunt down the entity, no traces of it were found. The Mothman may have signaled the deadly Xi'an or Qian, however you say that, Tay Dam disaster. Let's see. A region in eastern China was plagued with sightings of a figure that resembled the Mothman in early January 1926. Dubbed by locals as the quote-unquote man dragon, the shadowy, ominous figure was seen hovering above the Qian Tay Dam, or however you say that. The disaster hit the surrounding farm villages in the form of 40 billion gallons of water. The dam collapsed, resulting in the deaths of 15,000 people. And is that it? Yes, that is it for that site. All right. So let's just take a little breather here. You guys just sit tight and be present for a moment. I am going to check on a couple of things. and also give my voice a much needed rest. All right, one moment. Okay, let us resume. So, like I said, I do have that Mothman Prophecies book on my computer, but I think thus therefore I also have it on my tablet, or at least I should. So let me try to pull that up and read an excerpt from it because it is really good. Of course, the question is, how do I find it? Actually, I think what I'm thinking of is even in the Kindle version preview that you can get through Amazon of the Mothman Prophecies. So if anyone else wants to check that out, it's literally free. But well, I guess you're also about to hear it from me right here, right now. So let's see. All right, how do I open it then? Let's see. Okay. Let's see. Is this? Please bear with me, you guys. I'm gonna find this stuff. It's really good. Trust me, this is worth it. The content that you're about to hear is worth it. This is good stuff. Okay, here we go. So this is chapter 1 in this excerpt from the Mothman Prophecies. 1. Beelzebub visits West Virginia. Fingers of lightning tore holes in the black skies as an angry cloudburst drenched the surrealistic landscape. It was 3 a.m. on a cold, wet morning in late November 1967, and the little houses scattered along the dirt road winding through the hills of West Virginia were all dark. Some seemed unoccupied and in the final stages of decay. Others were unpainted, neglected, forlorn. The whole setting was like the opening scene of a grade B horror film from the 1930s. Along the road there came a stranger in a land where strangers were rare and suspect. He walked up to the door of a crumbling farmhouse and hammered. After a long moment, a light blinked on somewhere in the house, and a young woman appeared, drawing a cheap mail-order bathrobe tightly about her. She opened the door a crack, and her sleep-swollen face winced with fear as she stared at the apparition on her doorstep. He was over 6 feet tall and dressed entirely in black. He wore a black suit, black tie, black hat, and black overcoat, with impractical black dress shoes covered with mud. His face, barely visible in the darkness, sported a neatly trimmed mustache and goatee. The flashes of lightning behind him added an eerie effect. "May I use your phone?" he asked in a deep baritone, his voice lacking the familiar West Virginia accent. The girl gulped silently and backed away. My husband, she mumbled. Talk to my husband. She closed the door quickly and backed away into the darkness. Minutes passed. Then she returned accompanied by a rugged young man hastily buckling his trousers in place. He, too, turned pale at the sight of the stranger. We ain't got a phone here, he grunted through the crack in the door just before he slammed it. The couple retreated, murmuring to themselves, and the tall stranger faded into the night. Beards were a very rare sight in West Virginia in 1967. Men in formal suits and ties were even rarer in those back hills of the Ohio Valley, and bearded, black-garbed strangers on foot in the rain had never been seen there before. In the days that followed, the young couple told their friends about the apparition. Obviously, they concluded, he had been a fearful omen of some sort. Perhaps he had been the devil himself. 3 weeks later, these two people were dead, among the victims of the worst tragedy ever to strike that section of West Virginia. They were driving across the Silver Bridge, which spanned the Ohio River, when it suddenly collapsed. Their friends remembered. They remembered the story of the bearded stranger in the night. It had, indeed, been a sinister omen, one that confirmed their religious beliefs and superstitions. So a new legend was born. Beelzebub had visited West Virginia on the eve of a terrible tragedy. That's a good place to stop real quick. In just one moment. Okay, let us continue. Two, being a dedicated nonconformist is not easy these days. I grew my beard in 1966 while loafing for a week on the farm of my friend, zoologist Ivan T. Sanderson. I kept it until 1968 when hair became popular and half the young men in America suddenly began burying their identities in a great sea of facial hair. In those more innocent days, only artists, writers, and college professors could get away with beards. People even seemed to expect it of us. Perhaps if crew cuts ever come back and beards disappear, I will regrow my own. But today it would be sprinkled with gray. Too much gray, probably. Likewise, long hair was once the symbol of the super-intellectual, the property of concert violinists and Einstein-type mathematicians. The ultimate squares, really. I would prefer to believe that I did not look like the devil in my late beard. I certainly had no intention of launching new legends when my car ran off the road in West Virginia that November, and I plodded from house to house searching for a telephone so I could call a tow truck. I had just come up from Atlanta, Georgia, where I had delivered a speech to a local UFO club. West Virginia was almost a second home to me in those days. I had visited the state 5 times, investigating a long series of very strange events, and had many friends there. One of them, Mrs. Mary Heyer, the star reporter of the Athens, Ohio Messenger, was with me that night. We had been out talking to UFO witnesses, and earlier that evening we ourselves had watched a very strange light in the sky. Since there was a heavy, low cloud layer, it could not have been a star. It maneuvered over the hills, its brilliant glow very familiar to both of us, for we both had seen many such lights in the Ohio Valley that year. Mrs. Heyer waited in the car while I trudged through the mud and rain. We had been trying to climb a slippery hill to a spot where we had seen many unusual things in the past. I found that the telephones in the houses closest to our location were not working, apparently knocked out by the storm. So I had to keep walking until I finally found a house with a working phone. The owner refused to open his door, so we shouted back and forth. I gave him a phone number to call. He obliged and went back to bed. I never knew what he looked like. My point, of course, is that Beelzebub was not wandering along the back roads of West Virginia that night. It was just a very tired John Keel busy catching a whale of a cold. But from the view of the people who lived on that road, something very unusual had happened. They had never before been roused in the middle of the night by a tall, bearded stranger in black. They knew nothing about me or the reasons for my presence, so they were forced to speculate. Even speculation was difficult. They could only place me in the frame of reference they knew best, the religious. Bearded men in city dress simply did not turn up on isolated back roads in the middle of the night. In fact, they didn't even turn up on the main streets of Ohio Valley towns in broad daylight. So a perfectly normal event, normal, that is, to me, was placed in an entirely different context by the witnesses. The final proof of my supernatural origin came 3 weeks later when 2 of the people I had awakened were killed in the bridge tragedy. Some future investigator of the paranormal may wander into those hills someday, talk with these people, and write a whole chapter of a learned book on demonology repeating this piece of folklore. Other scholars will pick up and repeat his story in their books and articles. The presence of the devil in West Virginia in November 1967 will become a historical fact, backed by the testimony of several witnesses. So isn't that interesting how John Keel emphasizes here how these legends and stuff can just spin out of control, basically? And that one article tried to paint him as someone who is exaggerating things and not being realistic or objective. Interesting. Those of us who somewhat sheepishly spend our time chasing dinosaurs, sea serpents, and little green men in spacesuits are painfully aware that things often are not what they seem. That sincere eyewitnesses can, and do, grossly misinterpret what they have seen. That many extraordinary events can have disappointingly mundane explanations. For every report I have published in my articles and books, I have shelved maybe 50 others because they had a possible explanation, or because I detected problematical details in the witness's story, which cast doubt on the validity of a paranormal explanation. On the other hand, I have come across many events which seemed perfectly normal in one context, but which were actually most unusual when compared with similar events. That is, some apparent coincidences cease to be coincidental when you realize they have been repeated again and again in many parts of the world. Collect enough of these coincidences together and you have a whole tapestry of the paranormal. As we progress, you will see that many seemingly straightforward accounts of monster sightings and UFO landings can be explained by irritatingly complex medical and psychological theories. In some cases, the theories will seem more unbelievable than the original events. Please bear in mind that the summaries published here are backed by years of study and experience. I am no longer particularly interested in the manifestations of the phenomenon. I am pursuing the source of the phenomenon itself. To do this, I have objectively divorced myself from all the popular frames of reference. I am not concerned with beliefs, but with the cosmic mechanism which has generated and perpetuated those beliefs. And now let us breathe for a moment before section 3. All right. 3. There is an old house on a tree-lined street in New York's Greenwich Village which harbors a strange ghost. Hans Holzer and other ghost chasers have included the house in their catalogs of haunted places. The phantom has been seen by several people in recent years. It is dressed in a long black cape and wears a wide-brimmed slouch that wowed. I need to freaking talk better here, or read this better. The phantom has been seen by several people in recent years. It is dressed in a long black cape and wears a wide-brimmed slouch hat, pulled down over its eyes as it slinks from room to room. Self-styled parapsychologists have woven all kinds of fantasies around this apparition. Obviously, a spy from the Revolutionary War was caught and killed in the old house. But wait, this ghost may not be a member of the Restless Dead at all. There were never any reports of hauntings there until about 20 years ago, after the house was vacated by a writer named Walter Gibson. He was, and is, an extraordinarily prolific author. For many years, he churned out a full-length novel each month, and many of those novels were written in the house in Greenwich Village. All of them were centered around the spectacularly successful character Gibson created in the 1930s, that nemesis of evil known as the Shadow. If you have read any of the Shadow novels, you know that he was fond of lurking in dark alleys dressed in a cape and broad-brimmed slouch hat. Vitamin time, multivitamin St. John's wort, B12, and some tea. Yummy. That does sound yummy. I have been drinking so much tea lately. What kind of tea are you having? Last night I had some more green tea and peppermint tea, I believe it was. I love tea so much. Why would a shadow-like apparition suddenly appear in an old house? Could it be some kind of residue from Walter Gibson's very powerful mind? We do know that some people can move objects, even bend spoons and keys, with the power of their minds alone. Mental telepathy is now a tested and verified phenomenon, and about 10% of the population have the ability to see above and beyond the narrow spectrum of visible light. They can see radiations and even objects invisible to the rest of us. A very large part of the UFO lore is, in fact, based upon the observations of such people. What seems normal to them seems abnormal, even ridiculous to the rest of us. People who see ghosts or the wandering shadow have these abilities. They are peering at forms that are always there, always present around us like radio waves, and when certain conditions exist, they can see these things. The Tibetans believe that advanced human minds can manipulate these invisible energies into visible forms called tulpas, or thought projections. Did Walter Gibson's intense concentration on his shadow novels inadvertently bring a tulpa into existence? Readers of occult literature know there are innumerable cases of ghosts haunting a particular site year after year, century after century, carrying out the same mindless activities endlessly. Build a house on such a site and the ghost will leave locked doors ajar as it marches through to carry out its programmed activity. Could these ghosts really be tulpas, residues of powerful minds like the phantom in the broad-brimmed hat? Next, consider this. UFO activity is concentrated in the same areas year after year. In the Ohio Valley, they show a penchant for the ancient Indian mounds which stand throughout the area. Could some UFOs be mere tulpas created by a long-forgotten people and doomed forever to senseless maneuvers in the night skies? There are archaeological sites in the Mississippi Valley which have been dated to 8,000 years ago, long before the Indians are supposed to have arrived. Some of the Indian mounds, there are hundreds of them scattered throughout North America, are laid out and constructed with the same kind of mathematical precision found in the pyramids of Egypt. While it is known that the Indians were still adding to some of the mounds in the south when the Europeans first arrived, other mounds seem to be considerably older. Some are built in the form of elephants. What did the builders use for a model? Others are in the shape of sea serpents. These forms can only be seen from the air. To plan and build such mountains of shaped earth required technical skills beyond the simple nomadic woods Indians. Currently, there is a revival in diffusionism, a popular scientific concept of the 1920s which asserted that many of the puzzling artifacts and ancient constructions found throughout the world were the products of a single worldwide culture. The cult of believers in Atlantis were the principal advocates of this idea, so sober scientists naturally turned away from it for a theory that is almost impossible to support. This was the notion that many inventions and ideas simply occurred simultaneously to widespread, isolated cultures. The flying saucer entities have allegedly contacted many people in almost every country and have immodestly claimed credit for everything from the building of the pyramids to the sinking of Atlantis. Eric von Daniken, a Swiss author, has popularized the concept that members of an extraterrestrial civilization did contact early Earthlings, basing his theories on expansive misinterpretations and, in several instances, deliberate misrepresentations of archaeological curiosities. Von Daniken seems to be totally ignorant of the work of European scholars such as Brinsley Trench, Paul Mizrachi, and W. Raymond Drake, who have examined the same curiosities very carefully in the past 10 years and developed elaborate philosophical hypotheses about the intrusion and effect of alien beings on mankind since the beginning. Their concepts are wider in scope and significance and far better documented than von Daniken's simplistic efforts. Let me just see real quick how much longer this section is. All right, well, let's see. I'm going to multitask some more because that's how I roll. All right, let's see. Mountain cities to visit. Mountains around here. Mountains, not mountains. All the mounds around here. Oh, there's a lot of mounds where you live. Kentucky was a hunting ground. You were allowed to live in Kentucky. It was only for hunting, and they would burn it every year. That's why there's so many rolling hills, not a lot of trees. Serpent Mound. Huh. That's interesting. They would burn it every year, huh? I feel like if I were to be in the presence of these mounds, like the vibration of them would just blow me away, you know? Like I would just be, it would probably be like a spiritual, life changing experience. Let's see. Let me hang on. My tablet's driving me crazy. All right. Hang on, this is just driving me crazy. I know that I only have 6 minutes left. I'm trying to calculate. Should we try to finish this now, or how are we going to do this? Sorry, everyone. This is live. Give me one moment, my dear viewers, to figure out what the hell I'm doing. Okay, I'm back. You see, I have to prioritize certain things, but I think I think what we're gonna do, I was thinking about it a little bit, is I will try to finish this section tonight, even though I was going to leave in 2 minutes. But if I start getting too hungry or whatever, then we're just going to have to, I don't know, do like a Mothman part 2 stream or something. So, with that said, let's pick up where we left off. So wait, let me see what Lumen's been saying. The animals can be in the meadow and graze, and then they would hunt from the outside. I cried. It's just softy. Oh, that's sad. Yeah, I could never hunt. I just feel too much empathy for the animals. I wish I could be a vegan, in fact. If I was ever be the Great Pyramid, dear Lord, I think I might go into convulsions. Yeah, I've heard that seeing like the Great Pyramid and things like that literally are like it's an experience so overwhelming that it like changes your life. Like it really affects you on a deep level. At least, that's what I've heard, but I'm sure it's true. Just imagine that. And just imagine that stuff. All right, so where were we? That unidentified flying objects have been present since the dawn of man is an undeniable fact. They are not only described repeatedly in the Bible, but were also the subject of cave paintings made thousands of years before the Bible was written, and a strange procession of weird entities and frightening creatures have been with us just as long. When you review the ancient references, you are obliged to conclude that the presence of these objects and beings is a normal condition for this planet. That's all in italics. These things, these other intelligencies, or OINTs, as Ivan Sanderson labeled them, either reside here but somehow remain concealed from us, or they do not exist at all and are actually special aberrations of the human mind, tulpas, hallucinations, psychological constructs, momentary materializations of energy from that dimension beyond the reach of our senses and even beyond the reaches of our scientific instruments. They are not from outer space. There is no need for them to be. They have always been here. Perhaps they were here long before we started bashing each other over the head with clubs. If so, they will undoubtedly still be here long after we have incinerated our cities, polluted all the waters, and rendered the very atmosphere unbreathable. Of course, their lives, if they have lives in the usual sense, will be much duller after we have gone. But if they wait around long enough, another form of so-called intelligent life will crawl out from under a rock and they can begin their games again. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Now, section 4 is coming right up. All right. 4. Back in the 1920s, Charles Fort, the first writer to explore inexplicable events, observed you can measure a circle by beginning anywhere. Paranormal phenomena are so widespread, so diversified, and so sporadic yet so persistent that separating and studying any single element is not only a waste of time, but also will automatically lead to the development of belief. Once you have established a belief, the phenomenon adjusts its manifestations to support that belief and thereby escalate it. Indeed, beliefs form reality. If you believe in the devil, he will surely come striding down your road one rainy night and ask to use your phone. So you hear that? Everyone out there believes in the devil. He's going to come knocking at your door one day. So look out. If you believe that flying saucers are astronauts from another planet, they will begin landing and collecting rocks from your garden. Most of the manifestations accompanying the UFO phenomenon simply did not fit into the enthusiast concept of how a superior intelligence from another galaxy would behave. So the flying saucer clubs carefully ignored, even suppressed, the details of those manifestations for many years. When a black-suited man in a Cadillac turned up, He couldn't possibly be one of the endearing space people, so he had to be a rotten, sneaky government agent. It was inconceivable to the hardcore UFO believers that the flying saucers could be a permanent part of our environment and that these men in black were residents of this planet associated with the UFOs. But this is a fact. The quote-unquote truth the UFO fans have sought for so long. And as Daniel Webster put it, there is nothing so powerful as truth, and often nothing so strange. End quote. You can't learn the truth by chasing UFOs helter-skelter through the skies and planes. The air forces of several governments tried that for years. It is vain to hire astronomers. They are not trained in the kind of disciplines needed to investigate earthly phenomena, or even to interview earthly witnesses. Interviewing is an advanced art, the province of journalists and psychologists. One does not hire a parachutist to go spelunking in a cave or a balloonist to go diving for treasure. If you need a brain surgeon, you don't hire a horticulturist who has spent his life trimming plants. Yet this is the approach our government has taken to the UFO phenomenon. I realized the folly of trying to measure the circle from some distant point, so I picked a microcosm on the edge of the circle, a place where many strange manifestations were occurring simultaneously. And I hit the jackpot immediately, rather like the opening of an old Max Schumann novel. Bang, 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 bang. 4 shots ripped into my groin, and I was off on the greatest adventure of my life. End quote. All right, so I'm now 4 minutes overdue for this stream, and that was the first chapter. I guess chapter 2 would take a little bit of time to read. So I think what we're going to do is at some point, I'm going to do a Mothman part 2. This is my tentative plan anyway. And when we get to that, I don't know when it's going to be yet, but when we get to it, we will finish that, like the excerpt from that book. We'll read, I guess, chapter 2, or at least I think that's the part that I want to read to you guys. I don't know. I know what it is that I want to read to you guys because it's really good. So whatever that is, we'll get to that, I guess, probably the first thing next time when we look at the Mothman. But yeah, like I've got to go make and eat lunch right now. I don't know if I'll come back later tonight or not. It depends if I have enough energy and what all is exciting me, you know. Still got that new game on the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion going with Evocar Daemone, Evoker of Demons, or a name meaning Evoker of Demons, and damn is it fun. So I might have to indulge myself in that quite a bit, but we shall see. Anyway, let's see. I think we are like an anthill to them, to these other beings. Could be. Well, I hope that they show the same level of respect to the anthill that we analogously are to them as I show to the anthills that I encounter, which is that I try not to harm any of them. But all right, so thanks again for everyone who has been here and who watches when this is not live. I know I can be a little bit scattered at times, but that's just the nature of live streams with me. I think, you know, I can't edit anything out. So that's what we have. And thanks to you, Lumen, for sticking with me like virtually the entire stream. You came in early and you stuck with me. That's really, really cool. I appreciate it. But I appreciate the support from everyone indeed. I think the devil travels in and out of people who don't have souls, sociopaths, psychopaths. Could be. But that's a whole nother discussion. Maybe we can have another time. So thanks again. Have a great night. And see you guys next time. And yes, I will be doing more paranormal themed streams.